Gears have always been one of the more controversial parts of Brawl Stars, with them releasing in an absurd state where they were both hard to get and provided little value. But after many reworks and additions to make them both easier to obtain and more varied in effects, they have slowly started to drift into becoming more accepted by the community, as most of the hate started to drift towards hypercharges instead. But I feel we are still in a state where gears are an undervalued part of brawler building. The Brawl team has always stated that a majority of their revenue is made from brawler upgrades. So why not introduce more unique and varied gears that would not only give players a more enjoyable way to upgrade than levels, but also add more player individuality to their favorite brawlers? So for this video, I will be giving 7 different gear concepts that I would love to see in the game. To preference this, they will only be epic gears and a new style of gear that I want to see in the game in trio gears. This is partly due to me wanting to give both super rare and mythic gear concepts their own video, but also because epic gear releases tend to always be the biggest shifters in the meta. Since super rare gears are given to every brawler, they tend to just be an overall power creep addition. Or they can be completely useless on a majority of the brawlers. On the other hand, mythic gears definitely can bring a certain brawler back into the meta. But more often than not, they do very little to the overall balance of the game. So to start off, let's look at the requirements for an epic gear by looking at what has already been established. Unlike the super rare gears which all need a requirement to be active, epic gears are always active. Epic gears are also always given to 5 or 10 brawlers. Finally, the brawlers receiving the gear cannot already have an epic gear. I also will prioritizing brawlers without mythic gears for my concepts as well. But with all of that out of the way, I would like to start off with the Mending music gear. Every time this brawler hits an opponent with their basic attack or super, they heal for 2% of their HP. This effect can only trigger every 0.3s though. This cooldown will make more sense when we go over the brawlers that will be getting this gear. As you can see, the 5 brawlers given this gear are all music-based, and due to their wide attack and/or piercing abilities can activate this gear multiple times in an interaction. Although not always being necessary, I feel this would be an amazing counterpick gear to punish brawlers that like to group up and make your brawler even tankier. Melody pretty much always relies on her gadget to stay alive when she goes in on multiple opponents. So by adding in her own self-healing, she would have a way to stay alive without having to waste a gadget out of fear of death. On the other hand, Poco, Frank, and Janet all have too low DPs to fight most tanky opponents, one-on-one. But with this gear, they would be able to boost their specialty of fighting multiple opponents at once, and due to their piercing shots being a bit slow, they would be able to activate the gear 2 times with each attack if their opponents are far away enough. And finally, Draco is a brawler that is not out yet, but from what we have seen, he seems to be a brawler that will be all about staying in his dragon form. And although this gear would do practically nothing for him in his base form, the dragon form would pretty much allow him to have 660 self-healing every second if he is hitting his shots. For reference, that is just 100 less than a Byron shot, but would only be used if he's in his super and landing his shots. Overall, I feel this gear does lean towards the stronger side, similar to the reload gear, but does have clear counterplay in not grouping up and using fast damage brawlers like Piper and Otis, rather than chip damage brawlers like Tick and Pam. But moving on, the next epic gear I would like to cover is the Resilience gear. The Resilience gear makes it to where opponents charge their super 20% less effectively against this brawler. This is actually an idea I was planning on using as a trait for Doug in a rework concept. But I decided to spread it out into an epic gear after hearing a ton of people suggest similar concepts for other brawlers. As for how effective it would be, let's take a look at Mandy. Mandy's regular shot charges her super 21.125%, while her super recharges her super by 50% for every opponent hit. This means regularly it takes her 5 regular shots to charge her super. And when it comes to recharging her super, it either takes 2 super hits or 1 super hit and 3 regular shots. But when up against a brawler with this gear, her main shot would only charge 16.9% and her super 40%. This means she would now take 6 shots to charge it regularly, and to recharge it would take a super shot and 4 regular shots. Finally, she would also no longer be able to get her super back from landing it on 2 opponents. As if even one of them has this gear, it would charge back to only 90%. Pretty much across the board, this gear requires opponents to land 1 more shot to get their super. And we know how impactful that can be, as we have seen brawlers like Maisie and Lou completely fall off the meta just from needing to land 1 more shot to charge and cycle super. But what brawlers would be getting this gear? Well, to start off, let's look at all the brawlers who don't have epic gears yet. I also excluded the 5 that I just gave Mending music to. This comes out to these 50 brawlers. But to best use this gear, the brawlers has to be decently bulky. So I also proceeded to eliminate any brawlers with health below 7,400. This lowered the list to these 21 brawlers. I could see a decent argument for any of them. But these are the 10 I ultimately decided on. I tried to avoid brawlers who already had supercharge interactions with opponents. Hence, why I didn't pick Lily, Buzz, or Rosa. I also already have a plan in store for Gale and Sam. This plan is the next epic gear, the Experienced gear. The Experienced gear is an inverted version of the Reload gear, as the brawler with this gear has their unload delay reduced by 15%. This allows them to fire off their shots more rapidly back to back and have greater burst damage. The only brawler who has a similar ability to this is Griff with his Keep the Change star power, which is a 25% buff. As for the brawlers getting this, they would all be older brawlers. With the logic being, since they are more experienced with fighting, they have a better reaction speed in combat. Of the brawlers getting it, I feel it would have the most significant impact on Dynamite, Gray, and Gale. For Dynamite, he would now be able to throw out 2 separate attacks faster on either side of the opponent, and the smaller the delay between his bombs are, the harder they are to dodge. So in some cases with this gear, you would be able to create situations where dodging damage is almost impossible. On the other hand, Gray would not be as susceptible to assassins rushing him down before he gets super. And finally, Gale with his wide attacks would be able to rain down a ton of damage faster in a similar manner to Griff. But with this gear out of the way, we will now move on to the final epic gear for this video, the Oddball gear. Opponents are hesitant to attack this weird creature, making them hold back their punches. This means the brawler with this gear always takes 10% less damage. I feel this gear makes a lot of sense because if you imagine you are a brawler like El Primo, it's a lot easier to see yourself punching a human or a robot. But if you are met with a sentient blob of dog drool, I would definitely be hesitant to attack it. And when looking at the 35 remaining brawlers who I haven't given an epic get to, I feel it is kinda obvious who would be getting this one. With the recipients being Spike, Squeak, Tick, Cord, and Lily. My only regret with this gear is that I couldn't also give it to brawlers like Otis and Griff, as they already have epic gears and there aren't enough oddballs to reach 10 anyways. But with all 4 epic gear concepts out of the way, we can look at what the full list of epic gears would be. With there now being 7 unique epic gears, we actually see the distribution of their effects is very similar to the super rare gears. With comparing who they affect, we see both groups only have 1 that affect the opponent, in the Vision and Resilience gears. In addition, both groups have 2 gears that affect a brawler's health, with the Health, Shield, Oddball, and Mending music gears. And finally, both groups have gears that deal with a brawler's extra abilities in the Gadget gear and the Pet gear. But now it is finally time to move on to the second section of this video, where I will be discussing what exactly are trio gears. Well, as the name might suggest, they are gears very similar to Mythic gears, where instead of being regulated to just 1 brawler, it is regulated to a trio of them. As I have stated many times before, I am always a fan of when Brawl Stars adds features to make trios feel like a true squad, rather than just 3 brawlers based around the same theme. They have really been emphasizing this recently. as almost every new brawler joining a trio has had an ability seen in the previous brawler. So I feel like giving each trio their own passive ability based on what their trio is known for is a great idea. So for my first concept of this, I want to head back to one of the first completed trios in the Shaman tribe. The Shaman tribe is best known for their animal links and vision-based abilities. Nita's Bear Bruce will hunt down any brawler even if they are hidden in bushes. Bo has mind traps to catch sneaky opponents, and a star power dedicated to increasing his vision. And finally, Leon plays a reverse role in which he makes himself harder to track, due to his multitude of invisibility and cloning abilities. So the gear I thought of for them is the Hunter gear. Whenever there is an opponent with 30% or less health, this brawler will gain 10% movement speed and reload speed. With Bo being an overall balanced brawler, he will find usefulness with both of these buffs. While on the other hand, Leon and Nita will find inverse benefits from this gear. Nita already has a great reload speed, but often finds herself being outranged. So some extra speed would help out a lot. And while Leon already has a very fast movement speed and many ways to sneak around the battlefield, when it comes to consistent damage, he often falls short of anything more than burst damage. So with a faster reload speed, his DPS would increase a lot. As for how useful this gear would be on Leon, I feel his mythic, and then the damaged gear would still be better overall. But in situations where he can't build up his super, like against longer-ranged comps, this gear could definitely be swapped in to allow him to juke a few shots and build up his super faster. As for Bo, I feel he is a brawler that can use all of the gear decently, with this one being no exception. Though there might even be a niche build where he pairs it with the reload gear to constantly rain down arrows on his opponents and control the area better. But finally for Nita, I still think speed and damage will be the way to go for her. But now you have the option to swap in this gear in place of the speed gear for less bushy maps, or one of the gears for the pet gear if you really like Bruce. But for now, let's move on to the second trio gear concept. For my second trio gear, I decided on a trio that doesn't have their third member yet, but definitely needs more love in the game. This is the Splash gear. With this gear, the Water Park trio would have a slowing effect added to their supers. This effect has a range of 3 tiles, just slightly shorter than Doug's main attack. For Doug, this effect would occur every time his hot dog is activated. So first when it attaches to someone, and 2 during the revive process. This is to try and help one of his main issues being that on revive opponents are usually outside of his radius anyway. And if he throws his super on his teammates, they would also get a huge buff with the enemies on top of them being slowed. This means even if they don't take down that enemy, they are slowed and can escape from them. On the other hand, it helps to dummy-proof Buzz's super, as even if he misses the stun, the slow radius can still hit the opponents and allow Buzz to attack them anyway. I don't see this making Buzz a way less skillful brawler though, as it will always be way more beneficial to just land the stun. But I do see this having a great synergy with his reserve buoy gadget. As now, even with his gadget, his super will always have some form of adverse effect, in exchange for giving up another gadget, more damage, or a shield to go in with. But now moving on to the final gear of this video, we have the combo gear for the arcade trio. All 3 of these brawlers are known for their immense damage and team wipe potential. More often than not, they are seen as the carry brawlers for their team. So for their trio gear, I wanted to give them an ability that plays into that role. With the combo gear, their total damage would increase by 7%, with every consecutive takedown up to 21%. However, this is a game of trade-offs, as this combo resets every time the brawler dies. So this is a high-risk, high-reward gear that is useless if you keep dying or can't get a kill. But if you can get a good start with these brawlers and play around staying alive, you can solo carry with them. A particular set I see being used for them is either an all-in damage build with the damage gear, as they would constantly be playing at the risk of losing their buffs in exchange for a 39% damage buff from gears alone. But again, this is cautioned with the fact that they have to build up this damage over the game by getting 3 takedowns not dying, and being below 50% health for the damage gear to activate. That's why I actually think the gear to pair with this one would be the reload gear, as not only do all three of them get access to it, it also allows them to just stack up the damage once or twice, and then rain down boosted damage for the rest of the match. But again, this gear is incredibly hit or miss, and I don't see it being the best competitively unless you are just a goat at these brawlers. But that is about all I have for this video. Let me know what you guys thought of this different style of video. Should I do more epic gear concepts for the 30 brawlers I didn't address in this video? Or should I also make concepts for other things like star powers, hypercharges, and gadgets? But again, thank you guys for watching, and if you enjoyed, subscribe for reworks and more videos just like this. Thank you for watching.